Hey everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. On the bench are the guts of Shane's XL. One of these models here. Later model. The UT tag is completely destroyed on this. It's there, but it's a completely... nothing's left but the foil paper, so I can't tell you what year it is. But it's going to be mid-90s. So, this one... it's going to be a pain. It has the Zama carburetor that has the oil pump built into the carburetor. That's part of why some of this stuff is still together. Because I'm trying not to make a giant mess and get to the point where I have to go print a hose chart to figure all this out. So I've left a lot connected. The oil pump being one of the things that's connected. The fuel tank has a bunch of broken hoses on it. That's the outlet. I'm trying to... oh, this has the primer, doesn't it? Yes, I need to put a primer bulb in. That's what all this is about. Okay. I'm back with the program now. See, I ordered the kit, and while I was waiting for it to come in, forgot what I was doing. You know that Sometimers or the CRS send them, can't remember squat? Sure. Anyway, so this carburetor needs rebuilt. I know that for a fact. I've been into it enough to see that the diaphragm on the fuel inlet side is no good. Now this side was still in excellent shape, but when you order a kit, it makes sense to use it. So that's what we're going to do. As soon as I can get... oh, and actually this was getting kind of brittle, because it's coming off in pieces. There we go. So we're going to avoid losing any components here. These kits are meant to service more than one type of carburetor in some cases. So we've got a replacement style there that has all the right holes, or we have the original material that has all the right holes. Since I don't have evidence that this has been tampered with, we're going to stick with what was in it. Go that way. This is a Zama C1Q. I want to say H3. I've got to get this damn... god dang it. Cover on before I go looking for the model. You are just being a pain in my butt. Come on. I'm holding the throttle open so that the idle screw doesn't... there we go. Doesn't push things out of alignment, which it well can. Remembering I meant to spray this down with some brake cleaner and clean all the outside off before doing this. But that's part of that whole thing. Remembering it right now doesn't do a bit of good. So the oil pump, we've looked at some of these before and had to clean the check valve up here. I don't have any reason to believe we've got a problem in there at this point, so I'm going to leave that assembled and not screw with it. And I have to pull it back out of the case because I was wrong. Well, I guess I was wrong. But this saw doesn't appear to... you know, it's been used, but I don't think it's been used all that heavily. And it's still got a tank of oil in it. So I'm going to count on that having kept things in good shape. But here's why it wouldn't run. Hear how crunchy that is? Been through that before. If it makes that noise, ain't no good. No good at all. So, I'm going to go ahead and get the remaining hose. There, look. Ooh, well, that is some nasty hose. See if I can get it broken loose here. There we go. And I want to put some pressure on it right now. That's why I always do this fuel circuit side, the fuel pump circuit. I always do that first, whenever possible, because then you can put pressure on it as you're assembling this side and make sure you don't have an inlet arm that's too high or a needle that's leaking or some silliness like that. There is a method to the madness, not just pure madness. At least not that I'm willing to admit. Alright, so I'm just putting a little piece of cut hose on here to take up the difference in hose sizes. So let's see what happens. That's a pretty good leak right there. I'd pump that up to about 8. So where the hell is it leaking? Right there at the needle. That's clear. Clear as a bell. Let's see. A little bit back there. When some fuel hits that gasket, it'll swell and stop doing that. I'll go a little bit tighter. Alright, I'm going to go blow all that trash out. Now, it's not abnormal to see that. That just means we need to pop this needle out and potentially clean the seat. Now, I didn't buy the kit that has a needle in it, so again, I'm gambling on this being cleanable. See, that needle doesn't look bad. I don't know if that's focusing real well or not. Tip of that needle doesn't look bad at all. Fairly clean down on the inside. So what we're going to do is take the cheater's way out and try and clean it. And how are we going to do that? Well, take a little piece of a cleaning implement, and I'm going to put a little brake cleaner on it. We're going to use our battery-powered drill to work our way down there. Do it one more time. Ow! That's what you don't want to have happen. That is what you don't want to do. Catch that and spin it back out. No, I won't. Ah, shit. I haven't had one of those stems break like that, but that's a smaller opening. So, I guess we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. Yeah, could have been worse. Alright, so I'm looking down in there. It looks pretty clean now. That has a a brass seat that's pressed into there. It's got to be pressed in. There's no other way to access that. So I'm going to do my little bit of a stretcheroo on the spring like I do with most of these carbs. Not much. And I haven't gained much there at all. But it doesn't take much. And we're going to set that back into place. Man, just like I know what I'm doing. Let's see what I screwed up. Okay. I can tell you right now it's not seated all the way. The axle. Maybe that got it. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay. Not a lot of movement there, but there doesn't need to be much. Let's see if she's holding a little better now. Look at that. Check it out. Pretty rock steady. Not bad at all. Let's see if we can get it back together with it that steady. Alright. Which way? I think that was it. Where am I? I'm using the wrong one for the oil pump style. There we go. That's for the non-oil pump style. I got that upside down. That's pretty brilliant. Glad I noticed it before I put it together. So I'm actually looking at this so that I can line up all the holes. It's got to go like that. See how much I shifted the gasket there. Oh, come on. This doesn't have any index pins, by the way. So I should just take all those damn hoses off of there, but I just don't want to. These are such a poop. I would just replace them one at a time. Alright. Got one there. Let's see if still good. So we got a successful carburetor rebuild, and all we did was basically clean it out, clean that seat, because the needle looked good. So who knows if it was a little piece of trash that was down there, a piece of dried fuel. It's anybody's guess, but that's all it takes to make a leaker. Now if it was dried fuel, probably would have worked out on its own, but sometimes they don't, and sometimes it's the needle that's bad. Okay, pull that off, put that away. So yeah, C1Q, I'm sorry, H17. So the C1Q, this is hard to figure out, is printed way the hell up in there. And I don't know that things are focusing well enough to see, but it's way up on the carb body there. That's where the C1Q is. The rest of the series is on the back of the carb, or actually the top of the carb, because there's a choke plate printed right there, the H17. The rest of that doesn't really matter. That's some sort of production stuff that doesn't matter with the kit. When you're ordering a kit, it's C1Q-H17. That's what it is you're looking for. And thankfully there's enough references to these various kits out on the web still that half the time you can find a carburetor blow up from Zama that'll tell you exactly what kit you need. And that is how, for this carburetor, I ended up ordering a GND27 and getting the kit that I needed. So that worked out really well. Now, there's other Homelite models that use other C1Qs, that use that style gasket, so, or diaphragm. So I'm not going to get rid of that. I'm going to hold on to that, because someday I might actually need it. I mean, let's be real, someday I'm going to need it. So, for the rest of this, I'm going to try and be clever. And yes, you can stop laughing now. I want to replace one piece at a time. Just like old Johnny Cash built his... whatever that car turned out to be. One piece at a time. I know some of you guys watching the channel remember that song. So inlet and outlet matters on these pumps. You mix them up, you're not going anywhere. Not getting any oil moved at all. Inlet's at the bottom, outlets at the top. Or if that's how you want to look at it. Inlet is closest to the carb, outlet is furthest from the carb. Now this has a full tank of, oh man, literally a full tank of oil. I don't think I can do that. I know better than to tempt that much fate. I will have a mess from here to hell and back. I may still. There we go. That should be enough poured off to help not make a big mess. Famous last words, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is get this out, this fitting. And I'm glad that we're doing this and we get to see it. Oh shit. That sucks. I want to show you guys that fitting that I just dropped down in the bottom of the tank. So I guess I get to pour all this out whether I wanted to or not. What I want doesn't matter. Now the next trick is, can I pour this out without losing it down the tank? Down in the jug here. I can word, really. There it is. Thank you, dipstick. Alright, we'll let that drain a little bit. Oil's too expensive these days to be wasting. You can borrow oil. Alright. Now this duckbill's not bad. But notice this plastic fitting that they went to. This one doesn't even have the little relief on the side. It's really funny. Homelite played with a lot of different ways of doing this. The more common in these late models that you see is this plastic fitting that does have a small relief in it. So these things are really common. You put the pressure side here, duckbill there, and then this one's got a rubber insert with a tiny little hole to bleed pressure off. This particular saw, apparently they are not concerned with that, with this particular pump setup. So therefore I am not going to be concerned with bleeding pressure off until I know that we have a problem. Alright, I know that's the pressure line. I'm going to go ahead and get the filter off of this pickup line and we'll replace it. place it first. Where is... Naturally be under the box. Where else would you keep that? Now this is stiff enough hose after all these years, and it's hanging up. I'm trying to get this to come loose without zinging me in the face with oil, and I'm not having a hell of a lot of luck. So, this is not great. Here we go. Okay. God, this old hose is getting stiff. Seen worse. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Again, I could go to my paper and print all these sizes, or look at all the sizes, measure them off. Or I can attempt to make my life a little easier here and just do it this way. So that's what we're going to do. Now where you're fishing through the tank, any of the kits you guys buy from me that, you know, the hose kits, I put these angle cuts on just about every hose for this particular situation. And I always give, even with the angle cut, I give you a little more than what the factory calls for, in case there's a mistake on a cut. There's not enough for a huge mistake. Don't take that the wrong way. There's enough for a small mistake. So you got to scale your mistakes. Okay. These later tanks, they drilled them a little bit bigger, so the hose fits tight enough, but you can still move the damn thing without having a real issue. Okay. See if I can do this without making a mess. Okay. Oil filter's on. We're going to drop it in the tank. God, that stuff ends up shaped weird. This stuff, this rat's nest of hose almost didn't fit underneath the engine housing here. I think somebody had to spend a little time dinking with that, trying to figure out how to make that all work. So it's interesting the way this works. It's a dual purpose pump. When you think about it, this uses crankcase pressure coming up through the carburetor, through that, probably, well, no, it would be that port right there. And it's pressurizing the tank to push oil up there, and then this pump is positively pushing it out. So it's kind of a hybrid of previous pumps where it was one or the other. This is kind of both. And oddly, it seems to be one that gave, in at least the long term, more trouble. Now you can't find those diaphragms very often, like hardly ever. So hopefully yours doesn't go bad. Now, being as it's oil, you know, soaked, it shouldn't. I mean, even the Super 2 ones don't normally go too bad. Or the old style Super 2 ones don't go bad unless they've been exposed to extreme heat or solvent's gotten in there or something. Alright, so this, you don't want that duckbill to be hitting anything, but you want it to get where it needs to go. Seal the tank, I'll show you right here, with the hose, and then you want that duckbill to not be pushing against the wall of the tank. You don't want to risk distorting it. So, that takes care of the oil hose side of this. Now, where did I put... Now, there we go. Oil cap is good. Let's go ahead and put this tank back in place. You can see, whoop, dummy, right like that. So that hose I may have to reroute just a little bit, probably push it underneath. Oh, and that's the way right there. I never remember. Don't work on enough of these. This is a plastic intake manifold with a thread forming screw, so take your time to find the old threads. Don't cut new ones, because you'll only do it about once and then you're screwed. So if it doesn't go easy like this, I'm not putting any effort into this. Stop and figure out why. Okay. I'll worry about getting an air filter on that later. See if we can get the fuel side replaced. Now I tried to leave, again, enough in place that it was pretty obvious what needed to happen. But somewhere I failed just a little bit. No, I didn't. This is the fuel supply line for the carburetor. The barb is right down there on the bottom of the carb. So that's the fuel supply line. This is going to be the primer return line. Primer suction line is that one right there. So what does a primer do? Well, you know what? Steel, I think, is actually the smartest. They don't call it a primer bulb, they call it a purge bulb. That's more like what it is. So what you're trying to do is pull fuel into the carburetor and pull air out. That's the whole point. Because if you pre-prime this carburetor with fuel, you get it to the pump side, over down here, and you fill that up so that when you start cranking, it's immediately trying to put fuel onto the metering side. That's what makes it start quicker. Some of the old Tecumsehs, I think, on like lawnmower engines, might have actually had a little, you know, their primer was a true primer. It would squirt fuel into the carburetor throat. And then that action of the engine running would cause it to, you know, draw fuel on its own quicker. It's not how these chainsaws work. You're not actually injecting fuel into the engine. You're just getting it to the carburetor and removing air. So, enough babbling. Let's do it. You might wonder why I'm pulling it this way. Well, A, it's going to break. And B, it's a lot easier to pull a short run out than it is a long run. Now that hose has been broken enough. I am going to go to my cheat sheet and see. Boiler fuel supply 5.5, so we'll go 6 inches. And we're going to drop a new filter on that because that filter looks abysmal. It probably would still work. But I got a real problem with putting something that looks like that back in. Just don't trust that it's going to do what it needs to do. And if for some reason it's caramelized, plus look at that. I mean, that's old fuel. That stinks. Do you really want to put that into your carburetor first thing? I don't. No thank you. Not a carb that I've freshly rebuilt like that. That just seems like false economy. That's not where you scrimp and save. Now, for crying out loud, I'm going to go over the other parts bin. About time to order some more of these Zama filters. So same thing, push your hose in. When you can see it, grab it. But don't pull it too far like I almost did there. If the hose goes on too rough, put a little oil on it. Slip right on. I'm being stubborn because I think I can get it. And I am getting it. And I'm still stubborn. Glad my wife's not here. She would attest to the stubborn. And I might have to tell her she was right. And we don't do that. We just don't do that. And you guys know I'm joking. But a little protest every now and again about who's more stubborn is kind of fun. Alright, so look at the shape of this housing. So it's made to accommodate that freaking oil pump that sticks way the hell out where it does not belong. But we've got to get the primer bulb hooked up. So I'm going to leave a little extra on these hoses. Because I've done this before and it's a pain in the ass. I cannot say it any differently. And that hose was way longer than it needed to be. You just need to get into the top of the tank. That's really strange. I don't know if somebody replaced that at some point. Primer return 5, primer supply 3. That jives with what I'm seeing. Ugh, that's going to be a pain. Probably should have dealt with that before I put that filter housing back on. Look at that, it's coming apart in pieces. That's a great example of when a hose is intact. Check to make sure it's still worth being there. Otherwise, you might end up doing more work because you might put it back together thinking it's going to run, and it is not gonna because the hose splits right out. In fact, it might even start on the bench for you. When you get out and start rattling in the woods, it comes right apart. Okay, goodbye, rotten hose, bye-bye. Good riddance. Alright, let's cut those hoses now and get this damn box out of the way. So, 5 and 3. I'll go 5.5 just cause. Account for that. Needn't be trimmed. Alright, there we go. I always like to leave just a little extra where I can, so that my life down the road isn't a pain in the neck if I have to service one of these again. Okay, it's probably too short, but I'll start with that. Alright, I'm going to inspect. Now this one, this duckbill that I just pulled out has hardened. That came out too easily. We're going to replace that. And even though that was the black one, the later style, the more common 69 451 will work perfectly without fail. Okay. All right. Trim this cut end here. I hope somebody finds this video useful. In my mind, I'm like, God, this seems tedious, but we shall see. There we go. There she is. Okay. Now, I can never remember which hose goes to which part of the primer bulb, but that's important. So I'm going to squeeze and see where air is coming out. Alright. So remember the purpose of this. Pull fuel into the carburetor. That side, the outside, is what's forming a vacuum. So what do I want to do? Hook it to that port on the carburetor. So we pull fuel into the carburetor. I can't hook this up yet all the way, but we're going to pull fuel into the carburetor and expel air into the tank. That's what we're going to do. Just like that. Except that's what we're going to be doing. So, now is the time to get all of my trash the hell out of the way here. I'm going to go ahead and hook up and try to get this to not kink. Hook up the fuel inlet to the carb. And you guys all know what a fuel barb looks like, so I'm not too worried about showing this in any great detail. I'm just trying to get the thing on there to a point that I am satisfied with. And you would not think that was hard. For some reason, oh, my pliers were hitting on the body of the carburetor. This is a tight little fit here. There we go. I'm happy with that. I'm satisfied with that. Now, as it pulls in, hose is making a nice sweep there around the bottom of the air filter housing. I can see that the fuel filter is sitting on the bottom of the tank. I am satisfied with that. Primer bulb's at the ready. We need an engine housing. Okay. Now this engine housing is a pain in the butt, because you've also got to keep these wires for your kill switch up where they belong, which is basically right behind the flywheel, and get that spark plug wire to go through, and keep your hoses where you can get to them to get them out this hole for that primer bulb. So let's have some fun. Okay, that's a good place to stop and see what's cooking. Oh, that's a good place to stop and remember what the hell it is you're doing. We probably ought to hook up our oil discharge line to that port right down there by the bar. Huh. Think we ought to do that? I think we ought to do that. Question is, which way should I go with it? Which way? That's definitely not that way. Go down and behind. Okay, much better. Like there's something extra here and I don't like it. I had to cut it before we got too far along. Okay. So she's starting to go in. Not fighting me too much. Okay. Now I'm going to trust that I can get an air filter into that later. Famous last words, right? Okay. So we'll take our biggest pain first, which is this hose. It'll give us a little more to work with, because we can always pull it back into the tank. You slip it underneath the plastic right there, and right on out. And that guy will go the same stinking way. Once it bends over, right on out. But don't kink it. So that's the trick. You get it beside your adjustment screw so you can still do that, but you don't kink it. And I like to put it underneath this air filter. Keep those together because there's plenty of hose there. Alright, so they're sticking out. We can see them, we can get to them. Which one's which? I'm wiggling it. That's on the carburetor. That's my suction line. So that's the outside. Which means the other one's got to be the center port. And this is why you need to have a little hose available to work with. And now you can snap it in place. Well, you ought to be able to. Is one side bigger? Oh, that's a little chewed up. Somebody didn't. There we go. Alright. Now I did not put my throttle rod in, but I can get that in after the fact. So let's look for things that might have gone wrong. Whoops. Oh, I grabbed that hose. That went wrong. Now that's actually... okay. So that hose is actually too long, I think. Even when I push it down like that, not working. So we're going to trim some hose off and try to do it without making our lives miserable. I don't want that to rebound into the tank. Try that again. Pull sub back. There we go. So that's a case where I just left too much hose there. Now it's smooth, it's flowing, not gonna kink. Pretty critical. That feels like I got a burr in my... oh, I do. Nice. Deal with that later. Alright. So I want to test this primer purge bulb. Sure it would help everybody if I would call it the right thing, which is a purge bulb. Okay, that's enough. Come on. So what we're going to look for, it'll probably take 4 or 5 purges. We're going to look for fuel. Let me get this right. To travel through this hose and expel through this one. That's what we're going to look for. So fuel coming up. Make sure you guys can see. I think you can. Coming up this one and going down that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, right there. See it? 5, 6. And it's coming down this way. There you go. See those air bubbles? This carburetor is fully primed and ready to go. Purged and ready to go. So this would be 3 pulls tops on full choke and it'll be ready to rock and roll. I, however, hear my wife coming home with the kids. That means it's about to get loud in here. And I'm hungry. I'd like to have some dinner. So we'll finish this another evening, but that's okay, because I'll just cut the video and marry it together, and we'll be good to go. Alright. Let's see if that mess of fuel hoses are in the right spot. It's still good and primed from before. And we'll see if that automatic oiler is going to play nice. No guarantees on anything. What a dummy. I had that in the stop position. Alright, now that's acting extremely lean. Which, okay, that is to the limit of what those limiter caps will let us do. If that doesn't work, they're coming off. Okay, that may be why this saw got parked originally. Zama or Homelite, whichever. See how that limiter cap's right there? It's just right up against, and we're at as rich as it'll go on idle. Which I suppose is great and dandy if you, wow. I'm surprised that was even working. Most of those splines are off. That's great and dandy for emissions, but got anywhere at all, you need to be going a little bit further with this. Let's see if we can get it tuned without that cap on there. Touchy little bastard. Nice. Burn a little grease and crap off of there. Alright, she's running pretty good, but I've yet to get oil out to the bar itself, and that's a little concerning to me. I can see the pressurized part of the system's working. I can see oil up here, getting at least to that plunger diaphragm, but I'm not seeing a lot of movement from there. So I'm not going to waste a bunch more video time on this. I'm going to run it a bit more and see if I can trace this air bubble. If that doesn't move here in short order, I guess we're going to have to figure out getting that damn check valve unstuck. I'd really like to do it without getting the saw out of the case again, but I'm not sure I have a good way of doing that, so more to come. Okay, I know that's a lot of video time spent on just running and revving, but this little Zama is a touchy bastard, so I wanted to make sure to get it right. You can see the oiler is working now. Remember earlier in the video when I said I was going to kick my own ass if I had to bring it out of the case again? Well, yeah, start kicking. I think my standard procedure with that style oil pump from now on is going to be to put compressed air through the inlet port, because that's what I did. Just a quick burst, and whatever had it jammed up, I still had the outlet hose hooked up, and it blew oil, you know, that was in the line, I don't know, a good 3 feet across the yard. So, and from there, what I did is hooked everything back up, tightened the cap, and with the engine out of the case, spun it over with the drill. No spark plug. You should be able to see it drawing oil and then pushing it out and heading towards the bar pad, and that's where I left off. And what do you know? It's working so well, I got oil puddling underneath this thing. Now I'm going to still hold to my statement that this bar probably should be replaced. I mean, it's okay. This chain, I went ahead and spun those loose rivets down. You can check out that other video prior to this where I show what was going on there. But I would replace the chain and keep an eye out on eBay for a replacement bar to have on hand. But whatever the case is, I think I've babbled about this saw enough. It's going to sit, and whatever oil is pumped is going to pump out. And in a couple days I'll give it a cold start, and as long as these carburetor settings have held, it's going to get drained and head back home finally.